Have you ever dreamed of getting blackout drunk on some of the best beer you've ever had, surrounded by strange wolf people who are all talking about sports, in a bar surrounded by wheat and potato fields in every direction as far as the eye can see? Well, that's the kind of experience you can expect in today's country. Welcome to Ariabore. This is a country located right here in the continent of Pagafris, bordered by Altenais to the west, which I already have a video on, and it shares a lot of similarities to Ariabore. Anyway, Ariabore also borders a little bit of Blinkervund to the southwest, Tardenhau to the south, Mauti to the east, Kirmik to the northeast. That was not a mistake, and yeah, I know, that's a funny name. They also have a coastline on the Altina Gulf in the north. Now for the nerdy info stuff. Ariabore has a population of about 39.5 million people, with over 90% of them being Yabori lupinians, which I used to call them lupines, but I changed it because I wanted to make it clear that this is a whole race of people, not just wolves. Ariabore speaks the language of Yariba, shared with its western neighbor Altenais. The capital is Yalkavir, and it's right here, smack dab in the center of the country. Also, like their western neighbor, they follow Lyrism, predominantly the Morng Church. Their government is a constitutional monarchy, and their national alcohol is something called Kirske Tonna, which is named after Kirske, a town in the southern part of the country, and Tonna, which means beer or drunk in Yariba. The reason I bring that up is because Ariabore is stereotyped for being drunk all the time. They actually have the second highest rate of alcohol consumption per capita in the whole world, behind only Tardenhau, which I don't blame them. With a climate as crappy as the one in Tardenhau, there isn't really much you can do except drink booze and cry. Now, economically, Ariabore is doing quite well for itself, with a GDP of over $1 trillion, and a GDP per capita of a pretty solid 26,000. So, it's not the richest country, but it's also not the poorest. Their currency is shared with their western neighbor Altenais, the Unat. However, what they don't share with their western neighbor is the poverty. The poverty rate is about 2/5 of Altenais's, and the homeless rate is even lower. So if you love seeing homeless people, maybe skip Ariabore and go to Altenais instead. Altenais is a pretty stable country with a good life expectancy. However, the crime rate is subpar to say the least. You probably have so many criminals because there are so many drunk people. Time for the physical geography. Now, Ariabore is much warmer than what you would expect to see at a latitude this far south, mostly due to a warm current coming from the north in the Altina Gulf, which I already covered in my Altenais video. It's also pretty warm because Ariabore is quite the flat country, due to being mostly located in the fertile Skilskir River Basin. This makes it perfect for growing things like potato and wheat, meaning Ariabore's agriculture sector is very strong. Anyway, here is the flag of Ariabore, consisting of 4 horizontal stripes of red, black, white, and green, with the red and green standing for death and life, just like in the Altenais flag, and the black and white being represented as the Pan-Lupinian colors, which appear in Lupinian countries from Ariabore to Waiatwi and everywhere in between. All in all, very simple flag. On to the history section. Ariabore does have a long history, however I am going to start at their time under the occupation of the Kinimo Asaumi Empire, originating in Mauti. The first thing resembling an Ariabore state was the emergence of Anakaspabor in modern-day Altenais and Blinkervund mostly. As the Kinimos were getting weakened by Ibran colonization, Anakaspabor was able to expand along the northern coast. Additionally, the beginnings of the modern state of Ariabore were formed when the Yariba League broke away from Anakaspabor in the early 4500s. However, Ibran colonization was kicking in strong. It almost completely took out the Mauritian Empire, and Ruziguan also did some colonizing of Altenais. However, the Yariba League, through some skillful diplomacy, managed to avoid getting colonized and maintain their independence on the condition that they pretty much trade and comply with Ibrisis. After the Ibrans started losing ground in the region, Ariabore gained a lot of land. However, when the new Oipiat Empire formed from Imopesiat, they occupied some of the southeast parts of the country. However, the Oipiats couldn't really maintain influence there forever since the newly independent Mauti revolted and broke away, leaving this southwestern zone open to split between Ariabore and Blinkervund. And this is also where the modern state of Tardenhau came in. This is how they split that land. Ariabor also made a deal with Talgmadia to split Altenais in two. However, upon Altenais independence, Ariabor was reluctant to give up the land, but it was what most of the people wanted, and Ariabor didn't really want a conflict, so they just let that land go. And this country's pretty much just been chilling up until the modern day. The most significant event since then was probably the formation of the Kirskutona Company, made by immigrants from Tardenhau who wanted to take advantage of Ariabore's lower tax laws. And then after the company was formed and started making beer, this corporation absolutely just took over both of those countries. And Kirskutona still has a lot of influence in the local politics. Aside from that, Yariba people have made great contributions to technological advancements as well as modern art and medicine. Goodness, is that the longest history section we've had so far? That was a lot. On to relations. Ariabor doesn't really have bad relations with any other countries that are close to it. They're all part of the community of states in Pagafris. However, their closest trade partners are probably Tardenhau and Altenais, which have very similar cultures and yeah, they're very similar. Ariabor also does really like Mauti and trades with them a lot, but Ariabor's worst enemies are probably Talgmadia and Achavis, because both of those countries are fundamentalist and discriminate against Lupinians. And yeah, I think that's going to be everything. Thank you so much for watching. I'm really sorry about my mic quality. It's been really bad for the entire video, and I genuinely don't know what to do about it. But aside, let's figure out what the next country is going to be. Our next country is Ascolia. See you then. Thanks again for watching, and peace.